Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Living African. We will be continuing our discussion on the stigma of divorce in the African community and life thereafter. But before that, I just want to make this clear. The purpose of this podcast is not to encourage divorce, especially in situations that can be mended. The goal is to challenge the stigma of divorce using lessons from real life stories and to encourage anyone who is facing an unrepairable marriage to not feel trapped in the fear of judgment and to know that there is actually life after divorce. My next guest is Susan Mancho, who is a divorcee, as they call it. Susan was born and raised in Bamenda, Cameroon, until the age of 10, when she later joined her mother in the USA, actually in the state of Maryland, in 1990. She obtained a master's in information systems from Penn State University and worked in the IT field for over 20 years. Susan is currently a serial entrepreneur. She runs a financial consulting firm called Core Financial Partners, a franchise gym called Anytime Fitness Jessup, and a trucking company called Faith Trucking. She was in an 8-year marriage, which made her a proud mother of 3 girls. And her purpose and passion in life is to help others see or reach for their God-given potential through teaching and education, especially in empowering women going through divorce. She also loves reaching back to help others and uplift them. She enjoys traveling, seeing and meeting new people, and learning about new cultures. She is also an avid reader of financial and self-development books. Welcome, Susan. How are you doing today?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate it. It's an honor.
I'm glad to have you as well. I can't wait for us to dive into this discussion, into this topic, because it's something that, like I always said, which also aligns with the purpose of this podcast. It's very important for us to have these open discussions where we can, have a voice, or at least give a voice to those who are not able to speak up, right? So I'll just start by letting you walk us through the divorce story and how you met your ex-husband, any red flags you had seen, and how you dealt with them.
Okay, so I met my ex-husband at a friend's birthday party. He noticed me. I really didn't notice him. It was one of those parties that extended. You have the Friday event, the Saturday event, and the Sunday event.
Yes.
The African.
We Africans, we do that.
Yes. He's a Ghanaian guy. He was born in Guinea-Bissau, but grew up in Portugal. But the next day was the African Food Day.
Yes.
So we were all sitting, and he came out from, I guess, hiking. We struck a conversation. Next thing, one thing led to another. He had his own marketing firm. I owned a produce store at that time, a business, while I was working for Vanguard, and I needed help with my website. So needless to say, we exchanged numbers, and he started to help me to put this website together. One thing led to another. He invited me out on a date, and then we started to date. No red flags at that time. Seemed like a really good guy, the basics,
Yes.
I always told myself, which my sister later on in life told me, that my standards were not high enough as we lower our standards. So, I did that little check mark. He checked out, and I said, oh, it's a good one. He's decent.
Right.
So make long story short, shortly after that, maybe a couple of months down the line, almost close to a year, he proposed. And I said, well, at that time, I was, I think, in my late 20s. Wasn't really thinking about marriage per se, but people start the family around you, not so much my parents, but the aunties and
it's always uncles. Those aunties and uncles, right?
Yes, they try to mean well.
Right.
They start to drop those hints like, you finished college, you've had a good career, you're doing well for yourself. What next really should be marriage and kids.
Right. It has to be marriage and kids.
I didn't feel pressured, but it in a way, in hindsight, I want to say it was that subtle pressureness that was not pushful, that subconsciously, because of our cultures and our upbringing, we felt as though that's the next chapter in life to continue on that path of, goodness.
Yes. Yes.
So obviously he proposed, we got married. And shortly after we got married, I got pregnant and we had twins.
Oh, nice.
which was good. But then I started to realize that, what we should kind of take a step back as women is, what type of a partner are we marrying? I would just marry somebody who's, excuse me, a sperm donor, right? Just to have a man and he's going to give me kids. Oh, are we marrying a partner who is going to be actively? I always wanted to marry somebody who will be truly active in helping me raise our children.
Yes.
Compared to a lot of what we've seen, at least I saw growing up, where, when the children comes, it's like all the woman's job. The father, all he does is just provide, barely interacts with them. Now, my father wasn't that way. However, I still had a lot of aunts and uncles that were that way, that equally shaped what I was. So, but towards our relationship, not to drag it on, I started to realize that my ex-husband would give advice that he would not take. That was the first red flag. It is hard.
That is powerful.
Yes. It is hard to give advice. Like, he will give advice to his friends. And I would say, well, would you take that advice? He's like, nah, I wouldn't. Now I'm in a marriage. You can't just walk away, So I started to say, oh my goodness, did I miss this? Like, was I blinded by this? And then when I went in hindsight during our dating phases, I started to see little traits that he had. It was there all along, but I was so blinded by glorifying basic behavior that I overlooked those things. And that, in hindsight, had I known he would give advice that he would not take, I probably would have not turned down that marriage offer, right? And realized that you have to give advice that you can take.
Right.
So needless to say, after 7 years of marriage, some infidelity issues came about on his end that I wanted some clarity. And I wasn't running for divorce. I was not running for the hills of divorce.
Right.
And to be frank with you, I told him on our wedding day, I would not be the first woman to be cheated on. And I will not be the last woman to be cheated on. But what I will not do is have you support that behavior for you to continue it.
Right.
I need us to talk about it so that if it's something that I'm not doing to please you, I want to know so that I can hopefully correct it, depending on what it is. I was never given that opportunity. So when I was asking for this information, and I just said, I just want to know the truth. And the information that I was getting was very dismissive. It was as if I should just accept it and it won't happen again. Right. So it just didn't sit well with me. So I said, let's go to counseling. I'm not marriage for better or for worse. I did get married in a church, and they said for better or for worse. And this is one of the worst. So you want to work at it, because that's what we were taught growing up. Stick it, make it work at all costs. Right. Even sometimes when now for my ex, he was not abusive. He got a little bit verbally towards the end when things were going astray, when he realized he wasn't going to, I had put all I could put anymore, but I was still willing to fight. I said, let's go to counseling. But what my parents had instilled in me was that for something to work, you need two people willing to fight. Right. And the minute one person is not willing to fight, there's nothing you can do. Right. Although a good part of going through the ups and downs that were leading towards a divorce, I was the one with all the energy, making the counseling. Like I was willing to do the one man fight for quite some time until I had to take a step back. Again, you have those aunties and moms telling you, make it work. And you're having this one-sided fight. You can't have a one-sided fight. So at some point in time, I prayed for clarity, and that I had to take matters into my own hands and not allow my culture and stigmatism to dictate my happiness. So after I went again and said, let's go to counseling and make this work. When he said no, I said, okay, I'll give you the divorce. Let's go. Right. I'm okay at this point to move forward. Now, during that time, that one-sided fight was thinking about the kids, how people will perceive me, how my life will be. For 8 years, you have merged everything to help uplift and build this other person while you've been suppressing your, desires and wants for the sake of quote unquote marriage. Yes. So after a while, when I said enough is enough, I know me. I was this, vibrant young woman with all these dreams and all these ambitions that I kind of tabled to support and uplift my husband. So I need to go back to being that, and I will be okay. Yes. Just like I told myself, I will not be the first one to be cheated on, and I will not be the last one. I equally looked at other folks who had gone through worse situations than me in the public, but they were able to rebuild themselves. And I had an amazing and a supportive family, especially from my mom and my siblings, that instilled in me that vigor to know that I am equally just as powerful. So being married did not define me or did not elevate me to some status. That greatness has always been without me. So that's what really gave me the strength to just say, it's okay. It will be okay. And I will figure it out with the kids.
Right. Wow. That is such a story. You know, it's very, very inspiring. And I mean, obviously it's also touching, you know, because a lot of women out there's so many women who go through things like this, but they were not bold enough to make that decision that you made, you know. And similar to what you said, you know, we actually see all of these things, these red flags, you know, but the pressure from us, like we actually pressure ourselves. Like when you see your friends happily married, even though you may not know what's going on behind the scenes, but they show a happy marriage, right? So when you see that, or you see every other person getting married, it's like you have that pressure to stay married as well, right? So you put that pressure on yourself as well as a community, you know, like community in terms of even the extended families, like the aunties who, you know, have that, you know, you have to follow a specific hierarchy or specific steps towards your womanhood as an African woman, right? So we see all these things, but we tend to be dismissive of all of these things just because we have this internal and external pressures on us. So for you to make that bold step, it's very, very commendable, you know, because not many women actually have the power and the strength to do something like that. Now, was there any like straw that broke the camel's back in terms of like, when did you just know that that was it?
When for the third time, I scheduled counseling and I said, let's go and talk about it. Again, I just went back to, you can't have a one-man fight. It just will never work because then you will always be fighting. You will always, at what point do you say enough is enough? Like I loved myself enough to know that you can't fight for someone who doesn't want to fight for you. Because at that time, it just wasn't me. We had 3 little girls. And when we finally separated, our youngest was barely 4 and the twins were 6. So at that time, they're getting used to mommy and daddy and, you know, the things that we would used to do. Although most of the time it was still me being the caregiver, driving them to all the activities.
Right.
Just show up once, you know, you want him to have his peace. And I just said, enough is enough. Like this is not the end of me as far as life is concerned. So when I reached out to him the third time after I scheduled counseling and he said, no, I said, okay, I can't have this one man fight. I picked up the phone and I called my mom. I said, Mom, it is official. I am done. And I just told her, I remember this phone call like it was yesterday. I said, Mom, for the last 8 years, I was a caged bald eagle. I said, today, I am going to start to soar. Never look back.
That is powerful.
Yeah.
That is powerful. I mean, I wish every woman could actually see themselves that way, you know, especially women who are going through circumstances of such, you know, see themselves as a caged bald eagle, actually. And I mean, we should always be reminded that we are eagles and we can soar above any circumstances, you know. And I know a lot of women or people in general, because sometimes men also go through things like this, you know, a lot of people actually don't want to take that decision, you know, or action because they always think that they're going to regret it and stuff. And also in most of our African communities, there's still this conservative view on divorce, right? And also there's this, you know, view that you have to do everything possible to preserve your marriage, right? So how did these conservative views influence your decision to either stay in the relationship or marriage or actually leave the marriage?
So initially it kept me longer because you had little things in between that were truly signs of a break and deal. I've always been one keen on counseling, whether it's through the church or whether it's through another third party. Because I feel when you're two adults and you're coming towards a relationship working as one, you have to be in sync. So when you're not in sync, like you're saying A and I'm saying B, and we're not seeing anything in the middle.
Yes.
We need best to get a third party, whether it be through the church or through a counselor, so that we can both see our points and they can help us now tunnel vision so that we can be on the same path. Yeah. So the stigma of being married, the stigma of being a particular and maintaining a marriage home, a well-ran home, carried heavily on me. Yeah. So the young me pre-marriage, I'd have been gone.
Right.
Once I got into the marriage, it's like your aunts and grandmothers and stay there, make it work, my dear. Stay there, make it work. It's almost like they don't feel as though it's okay for you to say, if this is not what God wanted for you, he can't take you out of this. Yes. But once we get in, that's it.
That's it.
So there was a part of me that in the back of my mind, as much as I was educated and I had my self-esteem all the time, it still weighed heavily. It's that silent pressure.
Yes.
The silent elephant in the room that so many young African women we carry that even though we're here and we're educated, when you hear our stories later on, and you kept put up with that.
Yes.
And it is because of that silent elephant in the room, those whispers that you've heard all through the years. When you hit this level, now this is what you're supposed to be. Yes. So it kept me probably in there longer to continue to fight and make it work. Mm-hmm. But at some point in time, I'm just happy that I had an epiphany and I knew that God wanted more for me and I had more to give of myself without diminishing myself in a marriage that was not being fruitful to me. And I think in marriages, especially, I think a lot of us African women, I will go back to that, we lose so much of ourselves in marriage.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes.
Very few African men, and there are good ones out there, they know how to truly embrace and celebrate the greatness in most of us African women. So a lot of us diminish ourselves. I say we diminish our lights to elevate them and keep the household perfect because that's what we've been told to do. That is what our roles have been. And I don't blame the prior generations because that's all they knew. But I also hope that they would evolve. When I mean they, that means our parents' generations, our aunties' generations, to realize that we can be more than just a good supportive spouse to our husband.
Yes. I mean, every single word that came out of your mouth was nothing but the truth, honestly. And I'm very glad that we're talking about this because especially as African women, we grew up seeing our mothers take care of the household. It's like everything, even basically in terms of saving the marriage, we are the ones who have to save the marriage. The man never really does much, but the woman is always expected to be the one like, hey, you can make it work, or you can stick to it. You can do this. You can do this. So it's like, there's so much pressure on us as women and even African women, to always fix things. We're the caretakers of the children. We have to, we have to put everybody's needs before ours, even when we are going through adversity. And that also contributes to making us lose who we are because we are focused on so many other things and so many other people that we tend to not focus on ourselves. So I'm very, very glad that you brought that up because it's something that, at the end of the day, and this is why we have this, we're talking about things like this. We as women and some men, we have to learn how to put ourselves first in certain situations. And this brings me to the next question, because I know divorce, well, I don't know, because I have seen and heard divorce is never easy, especially when children are involved, right? Mm-hmm. So can you please talk me through, the worst of it? Did you feel any guilt, any remorse? Because I know for the most part, children are usually the main reasons why parents stay together, or at least women or men stay in marriages that they're not supposed to stay in otherwise, especially your mothers. Like when you grow up and we've grown up and we thought our parents' marriages, were like honey. right? Milk and honey. And then when you hear certain things that some of our mothers went through,
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. You ask yourself, like, why did you stay there? And they're like, yeah, it's just for the children. And then it's like you get confused. And if that's a doctrine that you will also have that pressure to stay in either an abusive marriage or a marriage that's not repairable because of children. But then again, you fail to realize that if you don't make yourself happy, the household or your children will not be happy. So I really want us to talk about that, how you maneuvered with the instance of divorce, especially when you had 3 kids already.
Gotcha. It was not easy. It was tough because you're always thinking about how are my kids going to feel? Are they going to be okay? Are they going to be loved? But when I finally made that decision, I immersed myself with good books on going through divorce with children. I spoke to other women who had gone through it. Mm-hmm. And the surprising thing is that children are so resilient as they know love. So in my situation, my ex wanted to make it a lot difficult for me because she knew the kids were obviously much closer to me because I was the one running. I was a caretaker. Right. After school activity was me. Swimming was me. Acting was me. All the activities were always me shuttling them back and forth. So it was tough because he wasn't making it easier. And, you try to have an amicable conversation to say, hey, listen, you and I did not agree, but let's just continue to love the children. So it became a little bit bitter on his part because he wanted to do the whole, it's your mommy's fault. It's your mommy's fault. So the oldest of the twins took it a little bit the hardest initially. The other twin and the younger one, they really weren't understanding it because when I was going through the divorce, I literally had to leave my 17-year career that I built. And that worked for 2.5 years until the divorce was finalized because he wanted to because he couldn't believe I would actually go through with it. He wanted to just make my life miserable in all capacity. And like most men, where do you get the woman? When you can't get her physically, where do you get her? The
kids, right?
So it made me have to start to bend. When he had to come and see the kids and he would not see the kids, if it was my weekend, sure. Like I was an open book. Whatever he said, I would jump. Mind you, we're going through the separation, all for the sake of the children. So again, I'm deeming my light. I'm being the peacemaker to keep things moving. But again, it got to a point where when he missed his weekend, he just had to wait to his other time because again, I was perpetuating that same behavior of always being the peacemaker, of always pleasing him, even through divorce. So it was a good friend of mine and my mom that actually brought it to my attention, says you need to stop that. Because if you continue to do that, he's winning again. Yeah. Right. Because now I'm still beating to his drum. Oh, he'll block his phone and fly on a boys' trip to, Atlanta on his weekend to see the kids. Then when he came back and wanted to see them for whatever weekend, I'll say, sure. It was always a yes when it came to the kids. So I was indirectly perpetuating the same behavior that I was doing in the marriage, outside the marriage, as far as pleasing him and making things work for him. Was I happy in that process? No, because if I had planned something on my weekend off, now I had to cancel it, put down my happiness and my sacrifices, right? I wasn't thinking about myself. I was thinking about the kids and him. Yeah. So it continued until when I went and saw my divorce lawyer and they were asking what was going on. And I said, we had agreed on, every other weekend or whenever he needed to see the kids, but this is the pattern. And it says, you have to stop it. If you do not stop it, it will continue. It will continue. So I still needed that outside help to get me to see that I was perpetuating the same cycle I was doing while I was married.
Wow. That's powerful. And I mean, I honestly, while you were talking, it just dawned on me, like, I honestly don't understand what it is, especially with our African men. I can speak only for African men. I mean, I'm African and we have heard a lot of stories of this happening, but for some reason, it's like in a marriage, that is breaking down, or a marriage that's about to end because of the man's act, of what he was doing, you have this instance where a man will treat the woman very badly. And then when she wants to leave after trying everything possible in her might to save the marriage, and then he retaliates, right? Yep. I mean, we saw this with the Cameroonian couple last year, the suicide murder in Ohio, where the lady was moving on with her new boyfriend, and this guy literally killed her and killed himself, leaving 2 kids as orphans. We saw this last year as well, the Ghanaian pastor in Orlando who killed his wife right at her job, because she had filed for a divorce. I mean, that's not the only reason. There were several other things going on behind the scenes, but we see this trend, of men, especially our African men, this retaliation that they always portray once they see that this woman is strong enough to leave them. I think it's probably going to be another episode that I would have to talk with a few men to really get to know exactly what's going on. Because I honestly, in my opinion, I feel like it's part of the ego talking, because they just cannot believe that a woman can walk out just like that. So she has to go with something. They have to do something to hurt her one last time. Sometimes it ends up being tragic, as we have seen in those stories. But, it's something that we definitely have to look into and also talk about it, because it's actually an issue in our community. Yep. Now, if you were to visit this situation all over again, like, what will you do differently?
Oh, I would not glorify, as my younger sister, and I'm going to give her credit, Kelly Mancho. I really have to give her credit. She's 25 now, I believe. I can't believe it took her for this light to come on. I would not glorify basic behavior as something extraordinary. Right. Oh, he's nice. Oh, he doesn't curse. Oh, he looks good. Oh, yes, he takes me out to dinner. Oh, yes, he brings me flour.
And
you
that's
are
what they're supposed to do.
Of that.
Yes.
So I would not glorify basic behavior, like basic expectations, as something extraordinary.
Right. Say that again, please. We need to hear that again.
Will not glorify basic behavior, that a man exhibiting respect and care and thoughtfulness, as something so great that I overlook all the other things that are going on. So when I sit in hindsight, all those things before, they're great and we always appreciate it. But some of us women, we glorify it so much that when we glorify so much, when we really start to look at who this person is character-wise,
yes,
there's no way we will even allow them to date our worst enemy.
Right. That's very true. I mean, like I was talking before, especially in the social media age, everybody is a baby mama or baby father or whatever, which, I mean, it's none of my business. But one thing I saw is that people actually, especially the women, it always comes down to the women. They actually glorify, and they're like proud of the father of their children coming to see their child or buying the child a gift. I'm like, that's not supposed to be glorified. That's what he is supposed to do, because we settle for the bare minimum. And then it's like, we don't even know any better. And we don't know how to teach our children, how to love themselves to the point that they need to know that that's normal and that's what they deserve, because in as much as we're doing that for ourselves, our children are watching, the children are watching. Oh, did mom do every single thing in the house and dad did not do anything? Or why is it always mom taking us to this, to that? So as the women, when they see that, at the back of as the girls, when they see that at the back of their mind, they automatically think that as a woman, you have to do everything. You always have to just make sure everybody else is fine before focusing on yourself. So that's really something that I really wanted you to say again, to let women understand that there are certain things that should be expected. That should be, those are silent expectations that nobody should even tell the husband or the wife that this is what you're supposed to do. Yes, so that was really powerful.
Yes, it is okay for your husband or your partner to come in. If you cook, for them to clean the dishes. It is okay for them to cook and you eat because you're doing that. So when they take care of you, it should not be something that is glorified. You should be grateful and humbled, but don't put them on a pedestal that it's like you're not deserving of it. You are, because guess what? You do it every day selflessly without even thinking. So the one time that he does it, why are you elevating it? Is he elevating you every single day?
Right. That's very true. That's very true.
It's funny. My sister, I remember when in this era, and I know you probably ask of after marriage and trying to date, and, you know, she just says, this time around, I need you not to glorify basic behavior. I lived with you because she lived with me, even going through that. And she says, I saw what you did. You put everybody first before you. Before you traveled, his food was in the fridge. You know, everything was laid out. Everything was taken care of. Just stop that.
Right. That's really true. That's very, very powerful. Well, as you was already a step ahead of me, life after divorce.
When you find that you are a bald eagle and you spread those wings and you realize the width and length of those things, you have nothing to do but to soar.
Right.
That's what I have been doing. I'm a Christian, and I believe that God doesn't give you anything you can handle.
Yes.
So it just allowed me to take a deep breath and say, okay, Susan, you got to do yours. Unfortunately, I wasn't in a good one where my ex is very involved in our children. He hasn't seen them in 3 years. Doesn't house support. Absolutely. So, but I have amazing parents who always told me that it is okay for a man to come and want to take care of you. You are, most of us women are deserving. Hear me, ladies. We are deserving of a good guy coming and taking care of us. But that doesn't mean we should not add value, meaning that you should not better yourself or empower yourself, because if and when he does leave and you have children, you also want to be in a position to take care of yourself. So I always took heed to that advice ever since I came to this country 10 years old.
Wow.
So obviously I had a good career. I was out for a while, but I had saved well and I had businesses that sustained me and an amazing family. So I was able to kind of get myself back so I can care for the kids. Now, being able to soar and make your own decisions and see that the decisions that you were sharing while you were a couple, because we had 1 or 2 businesses together, that he was not taking heed because you were a woman. I have been able to implement those decisions, and they have been fruitful. And I just sit and say, had he done that back then, could we have been in a far better position? So I've just realized that my voice cannot be diminished anymore. My light cannot be dimmed, right? So as I try to date, if I see any guy that's coming to try to dim my light, and guess what? If your light is dim as a guy, I will be more than happy to help you shine it.
Yes.
What I'm not going to have you do is for you to even go near my switch, to even try to bring it down. I will stop you right then and there. And it's because now, as a bald eagle, you know, we have that sight, that line of sight.
Yes.
I'm laser focused on seeing those signs that I missed in hindsight, so that I don't repeat the same, I don't make the same decisions that got me in it, right? Because often or not, what happens with us divorced women is we fall right back into our patterns. And by the time we realize it, we're in another relationship or in another marriage, and the same thing is happening because we never took that step back and really identified what it is that we're willing to tolerate and what it is that we're not willing to settle for, not tolerate, and stick with it. And if you are truthful to yourself, I honestly believe God will send you in due time what is right for you. Right.
Wow. That's really powerful. Thank you for that. Now, once the divorce was final and you had this newly single life, I would imagine as an African woman at the same time, a newly single woman, a divorcee with 3 kids, what challenges or what, freedoms did you have? Like, especially when it had to do with, trying to, take care of everything and maneuver your new life as a single woman with kids. And then like what fears did you have, especially going back into the market, knowing that, people may look at you as, like you have kids and all of that? Like what were your fears and challenges?
My fears were protecting the children. Finding somebody that I liked enough that would come in and respect my children. But then again, if I didn't like you, you weren't meeting my children, right? So I'll be very honest. I dated a guy for almost 2 years and my kids didn't even know I dated him. They just knew him as my friend. And my sister pointed that out to me, that I made a mistake, because what we need to teach our children is that some relationships will work and some will not work. Because as they journey through life, some friends, they're going to have to shed, right?
Yes.
If I just wait and I find that perfect guy, like after divorce, and I say I'm dating this perfect guy, all of a sudden we get married, they haven't seen anything in between. So they may think that, oh, when you date this one person, you have to stick with them, even if they're treating you like crap. So I took a step back again. This young 25-year-old young lady is putting all this young, fresh ideas that escaped my parents and my auntie's generation, in the sense that we have to show what a healthy relationship is, one that you agree and one that you don't agree, because they are going to be forced to make those same decisions as they journey through life. So, and I told my sister that you're right, Kelly, the next guy that I do date, and I feel as though he is right to meet the kids, when I'm that comfortable, I'm going to introduce the kids to him as somebody that mommy is getting to know, so that they can relate that, hey, if things don't work out, but we're still friends, they can understand that that is okay. If things don't work out and we can be friends, that is also okay. Because the problem for us is that we never saw that.
Yes, we never saw that. Actually, in our parents' generation, it was a taboo for a woman to even move on after a divorce, or even after she loses her husband, And now it's like, at that time when our parents divorce or something, like everyone's already asking the father, like, when are you bring in another woman? When are you, because the woman is a helper, right? So he needs someone to help him. But when it comes to the woman, you're supposed to stay single for the rest of your life.
And look after the kids.
Yes. And look after the kids. If you try to meet someone new, it's like you're a whore, you're being called all of these names. But for the husband, if there's a divorce or a life event of a death of a wife, 1 year later, everyone's asking, like, when are you getting married? They're bringing him. Yes.
Because it's funny, because when I was going through my separation, before he even moved out of the house, he already had a new girlfriend.
Oh,
yes. But when I just had a friend, not even somebody that I was dating, just a friend who would give me advice, and he would hear the voice. Oh, I'm this. I'm not a fit to be a mom. I'm not fit to be a wife. I said, but you just told me you have a new girlfriend who looks better than me and dresses better than me. Now I'm just talking to a male friend, which I never did out of the respect of our marriage. Now all of a sudden I'm the whore. I'm the this.
Yes.
And I just had to sit back and say, wow, if I never saw double standard played out in my entire life and in my entire marriage, he gave it to me like front and center. And it just made me realize that after a while, as a woman, we just really have to know ourselves. But more importantly, just know that we're not going through this alone, and that there are options. And we have to really start to push that 5,000-pound elephant of a stigma out of the room, so that we can see the world in front of us and what we're capable of doing. And that it's okay. And if you show love to your children, trust me, they will be fine. And that's what I have realized.
Oh my goodness. That's so powerful. That is so powerful. Thank you. I mean, every single thing you have said today is just giving me chills, because I'm so excited, because I feel like so many women who are not even married yet out there, because there are women who have been in long-term relationships, even short-term relationships, not marriages, who are already going through stuff that married people go through, So I feel like we all need this message and this reminder, So, I mean, you said so many things that, we can all relate to, or we can all take from that. But on a personal level, like, what has this entire experience, like going through the divorce and life after, what has that taught you about yourself?
That I am so much more powerful than I gave myself credit in my marriage. I do not advocate for divorce, people. I do not. In some situations, we just have to accept that we married the wrong partner.
Right.
Come to that realization, then you have to just be strong enough to know that there's something greater out there for you. And it's not necessarily greater out there as far as another man, but just greatness that's within you that needs to come out. And so many of us women, we have all this greatness going, then life happens, we get married, and if we're fortunate to have kids, we have kids, then it's like, ooh, we just close. It's like an umbrella that you just close.
Yes.
Now you're just in this cocoon, just marinating. And then you realize 30 years later, kids are grown, and you look back, oh my goodness, what have I accomplished besides being a mother? Not taking away anything from single moms. Mm-hmm. But for some of us that God had put greatness in all of us. Yeah. But for some of us who had so much ambition, most of us lose ourselves in marriages. I would have never thought, like when my family, Susan, like really, I lost so much of my vigor of life in my marriage for the sake of my husband. And indirectly, it was because of that 5,000, I like to call it that 5,000-pound elephant in the room. It is those silent norms of expectations of a woman. You know, my grandmother used to say a woman should be heard and not seen. You know, if I made a mistake and just closed the kitchen cabinet a little bit too loud, if my brother did it, it was okay. But when it was Susan and she heard it, oh, I heard it, you know, sit up straight, hold your stomach in, don't slouch your shoulders. All those things over time repeated with the aunties, and they mean well.
Yes, they mean well. They don't know any better.
Thank you. You took the words out of my mouth. So it just really taught me that whoever gets to come back into my life as a significant other, I still believe in love. I think it's a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. And there are great men out there, the great men who truly understand that they're dealing with great women, and they understand that they can let the woman light shine as well as equally have their light shine. And it does not deal with their manhood. Like the men who know how to put, I like to say men who know how to put their ego in check, because a lot of men's downfall is your ego and pride.
The ego. Yes.
Your ego and pride. So I just realized that I can still be submissive to a man and he does not diminish my light. That's what I have learned. And as I take it out to date, as I'm back in the market, although I do have, I think it's a good one. He's learning, but the ground rules are there, right? When you're coming in, these are my ground rules. This is who I am. This is what I want to do. I am ambitious. I put it all on the table. So I don't, 3 months down the line, I don't want you to say, but this.
Yes.
Tell you from the beginning. And a lot of us women, we need to show up, especially after divorce. We have to show up day in and day out with the person that we want to be. And so many of us, and this was another red flag for my ex, and I'll say why. The way I am inside my house is the same way I am outside my house. My ex was not the same way. Outside, he could not touch a fly on the wall. Gentle. Inside, different person. You know, so we women have to make sure that the way we show up outside is the same way we show up inside. And I think that's where you start to live your truth, and you will attract people who are okay seeing that truth outside and inside. There's no two way. And that's what happens with a lot of our relationships. So that's what I took away from it as I go forward. It's like, I am crystal clear without mixing words. This is Susan Mancho.
Right.
I'm not perfect, but this is who I am. So if you're attracted to all of this, this is what I want you to understand what you're getting yourself into. So that if it doesn't work out for you, I am okay. We don't have to it's okay not for things not to work. That's why you date, to see who you're compatible with on a lot of fronts, to now decide if you want to forge a correlation together as a unit, a partner, and journey through life.
Right. That's very true. And I also wanted to add, because based on the culture of like, you must do everything to save your marriage. You must do everything to save your marriage. Sometimes everything doesn't work, right? And we can't keep doing the same things, the same everythings, and expecting the different results,
It's called insanity, my dear.
Right? Insanity.
You just defined the word of insanity.
Insanity, yeah. So some women, we as women, we always have to know that there is a point where everything cannot work, and we just have to let go when everything cannot work. And when I mean everything, I mean literally everything, counseling, every single thing. When it doesn't work, then there's that point where we just have to let it go,
And the letting go is that you're loving yourself more.
Right.
You deserve more, because for most situations, It is us, the women, that are fighting. We're fighting. We're doing this one man fight, hoping that eventually he'll just give us just 5% so that we can take our 90% and that hope.
Yes.
You must have that threshold to say, I've been fighting for 10 years and he has not budged. He's not going to budge.
It's not going to budge. Wow. So, I mean, you have spoken so many things. I hope everyone is like writing notes down and stuff like that. What is the, one last word that you would tell other women who are in a similar situation, maybe going through this hard decision of, getting a divorce? I mean, men and women, I don't want to exclude men because there are actually good men out there who will do everything to save their marriage, but it's still not working, right? So what will you tell people who find themselves in such a situation about, divorce and like just maneuvering the process and life after?
Charity begins at home. You got to love yourself. It's like the plane. They say before you put the mask on the child, put it on yourself first. Right. So are you okay? Is your state of mind okay? Think things through out first. Always be willing to fight, but the fight has to be a two-way fight. And if it is not, you have to take a step back and see if it's worth it. But you have to love and put yourself first in any situation. That is my advice.
Wow. Thank you so much. Now, I know you're also an advocate for like financial independence, especially, amongst women and stuff like that. So I know this is definitely going to be another topic that we're going to talk about. Would definitely be another episode, just picking your brains up and, seeing different ways for you to tell us different ways on how women especially can be financially independent, because finances or poverty is one of the reasons why women remain in relationships, right? Yeah. So how can we reach you if anyone wants any of your services?
Oh, really easy. My email address. I'm not huge. I have to apologize. I am on LinkedIn. I'm not huge on social media because I still believe in the human interactions. And I think sometimes, social media gives us a false hope. But I can be reached. My direct cell is 610-301-9400. Or they can email me at susan@corefinancialpartners.com. That's a good way to reach out to me.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure, having this interview with you. And I mean, as for our listeners, I hope that this, episode inspired those who are in a similar situation and also gave a voice to those who have been silenced and feel like they're stuck in a situation that is irreparable. Now, so we have actually come to the end of this podcast episode, and I hope that the discussion does not only end here. And I also hope that we can have more of these conversations within our circles and just learn to be more understanding, accepting, and tolerating of each other. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will catch you on the next episode.
Thank you.